Police arrested Timothy George Simpkins for the high school shooting. He wounded 4. Okay. We're wondering why this hasn't been covered.
Yeah.
And there were people who said this is the first ever black mass school shooter. That's not true. No. We'll get to some numbers. No. And I will tell you what, I was surprised when I saw the mugshot. Why? Because I know the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And the truth is, this kind of stuff happens, or something equivalent, in the south side of Chicago. Days go by.
Leroy Brown.
Yeah.
Massive school shooter.
All the time, and in Detroit, all the time, just not covered. The reason the media rushed here with cameras was because they thought, oh, suburban area, school shooting.
Yeah.
Of course, we're going to, before the bodies are even warm, run with a narrative. Now, I want to be clear, there's some information out there that we don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, the reason we're talking about it is because the media misreported this yesterday as though they did know. Some legitimate outlets reported that there were deaths. Some outlets reported falsely on videos that had been circulating. And I want to say that we don't have all of the information here, but I'm going to make some inferences in which I'm not entirely confident as an exercise in just reading about what the media is not telling you. So it'll happen in real time. Here's the first thing. It's Simpkins' family, the kid who shot up the school.
Yeah.
His family blamed... rather than apologize, it was surprising how they did not apologize when you watch this entire clip. They blamed bullying. Well, one does.
He was scared. He was afraid. There's a video that's all out on social media, and it shows that he was being attacked. It wasn't just one person that would attack him and bully him, taking his money. It takes us all. It takes us all to stand together about this bullying. It could have been a situation where he took the other turn and decided to commit suicide. What the decision
that would have been
he
way
made,
worse than
taking the
shooting
gun,
4 people.
We're not justifying that. That was not right. But he was trying to protect himself.
It sounds to me like you just justified it.
A little bit.
He was trying to protect himself when he went back home, got a gun, came back in, cocked it, loaded it, went through the metal detectors, and shot 4 people.
I mean, as a parent, though, I mean, I can understand her stance of defending her child instead of just jumping in and apologizing.
Yeah, I can understand
say
it.
that it's like, I mean, I get.
Do you think that would be afforded to white parents of Columbine, or people like, if they came out and said, my son's right, you people are just overreacting?
Well, there's a couple books on Columbine, including one of the mothers that I read, and they did in some ways, like a minister had a secret funeral for Dylan and Eric. I think the other one's name was. I can't remember. I forgot their emails. But I
most offensive is they're still using Hotmail.
I know, it's crazy. I'm like, oh, you guys haven't responded since '99.
What's going on? I got ghosted.
Must be Y2K.
Oh, how was that lunch special? I thought I ruined this.
No.
Sue Klebold wrote a book about it where you do, and there's actually a movie too, which is from the view of a school shooter's parents, which is a really fascinating character study. So it's like there is a lot of layers that can cause somebody to behave like this. I'm wondering what is truly the symptom of this, or what's causing this.
And I said it earlier. I watched it, and they seem like normal people. They don't seem like they're like crazy ghetto people, or they seem like normal people.
I guess we have a disagreement in the studio, because I do not have a whole lot of sympathy for a guy who walks in and shoots 4 people.
No. He's talking about
I'm not saying. I'm saying.
No, you're saying the parents are normal.
The
The parents, I'm not saying I have sympathy.
It's got to be rough. It's got to be a rough situation.
Well, there's a difference between going to school like
for them, not. I don't think for him.
No, I'm referring specifically to the parents.
Yes, that makes okay. I agree with that.
Yeah, and there's a difference between going to school with the intent to just shoot and kill as many people as possible and going back in. So it looks like he shot an adult, a student, another person was grazed with a bullet, and another person was being treated for a fall or something like that. So
a pregnant lady.
So he's not a great shot.
No. What I'm saying though is that there's a difference between that, like where maybe it looks like you're going after the person.
I'm in so
you
much
shouldn't do it either way. But that's different than walking in and just indiscriminately shooting up the entire school. So I definitely understand that this is not Columbine. right?
But
I don't know. I mean, that seems like he has a problem with 4 different people, and one of these things has no connection to the other. I mean, their argument is he was bullied. I think the guy who had a collapsed lung is an adult, like a teacher, right?
Right.
If a teacher,
so he was bullying him
in the way. Maybe the teacher jumped in the way.
Was he making him work on the railway tracks? What we have here is a failure to communicate. I'm going to go get my Glock. Like, what do you think was really happening? The point is, no, of course that's indiscriminate. Pregnant lady got hurt, and a guy got a collapsed lungs,
I don't know.
and then people, okay.
I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying it's not Columbine.
She fell down trying to get out of the... It's Columbine, only he's a worse shot, like Dave said.
No, it's true. It is. I agree. It is Columbine. I mean, this has been a huge problem, and it wasn't this giant. Like people talk about, it was this giant thing in black communities where I'm from the Detroit area. It wasn't like this. There was a lot of gang warfare. There was drugs.
Well, I actually get to some stats that might surprise you in a way.
I would be surprised.
Honestly, a lot of people are surprised, and that's because of the way the FBI presents a lot of their crime statistics.
Yeah.
So,
but I do think, though, it is part of the same thing. There's something that has happened in the last 22 years. That's causing
the statistics don't. I think what has happened is we have a media with a 24-hour news cycle. And let me just say one thing, too. That's something I'm incredibly grateful for with this show. Your parents, my parents, your grandparents, their grandparents, guess what? They had news 3 times a day, a half hour. That was it. You didn't need a 24-hour news cycle. And so guess what? We have the luxury of today where it's like, well, there's not a lot of news to fabricate. Let's do a 7+1. Let's make sure it's informative, entertaining. We can have more conversations. We can play some games because we are not beholden to selling fear. We are not beholden to making sure that you panic. The truth is, crime has been going down consistently until 2020. Wonder what was different about that. Which one of these the anomaly? School shootings make up a very, very small percentage of mass shootings.
Yeah.
Far more of them are gang-related violence, and you'd be surprised as to how many of the qualified mass shootings actually happen at minority schools. Most of them. And we're going to get to that in a second, and they're just not necessarily covered. This is something where a lot of people have a perception that something has really increased. Look, this is what happened. Columbine, they said, oh my gosh, these ratings are insane.
Yeah.
We're going to continue covering mass shootings at any given point. They didn't used to cover that, even though they happened before. The same thing is, look, the reason that they're talking about Donald Trump still. When did they used to discuss an ex-president ad nauseum at length? They didn't. They just realized that it was unbelievable for ratings, and CNN is where ratings go to die. And so they're like, cover Trump, cover mass shooting, a car chase. That's why the numbers don't reflect that. And here's something, again, I'm making an inference. They said that this kid was bullied. Okay. Really quickly, can we bring up the mugshot first? So this is the mugshot. Now, the photo that was circulating was the APB picture. That's what you asked me about, Dave. And I said, hold on a second.
Yes, the original.
And there are a lot of websites that are still covering with the APB picture. Meaning there's an all points bulletin where they were saying, hey, let's try and get the shooter. They're still using that picture even though we have a mugshot now. I'm making an inference by the fact that the media is being a little bit tongue-tied, not saying that this kid was actively being bullied or actually the one who was being beaten up in the video. If you look at the mugshot, and keep in mind, he's a senior, we can't show you the video because that's been removed from Facebook or YouTube, but I think we have some images from the fight in question here. And if you do go and watch it, it looks a lot like the guy in the mugshot, and the other guy clearly does not. The other guy who's getting beaten up is clearly lighter skinned, clearly doesn't have the same haircut. And look, anyone can change a shirt, but it matches.
Yeah.
Not only that, what else? It's obviously a senior beating up on a freshman or a junior. It's one much bigger male beating up on a smaller male, beating the crap out of him.
Yeah.
To be clear, it's not a fight. It's an absolute beatdown. So I don't know that he's the one administering the beatdown, but because the media initially started covering it with that narrative, and then they said, and now they're being quiet, and this has been circulating, if I were to bet my bottom dollar, I would say, looks like he's the one administering the beating.
Yeah, and according to the New York Post, as of about 4 hours ago, they were saying that the shooting was a result of this fight.
Right.
The fight in that video.
They didn't say it was a result of him being beaten up.
No.
They just said the result of this fight. Really, what happened in the fight? We don't have a research department.
And the cousin on Facebook was basically defending him as well, saying, no, it was because of bullying and everything else, and I think posted that fight video as well, right? So
well, I mean,
there's a lot of it that says, that video is them one way or the other.
Right, and the point is this. The media doesn't want you to know why. This story, they're trying to memory hole this story. It was being covered. We were there yesterday. Remember, Dave?
Yeah.
It was live. They were set and ready to have their next 24-hour coverage, and they were still covering it once he was in custody, right? Covering it, people shot, covering it incorrectly at some networks and news outlets that there had been casualties at that point, covering it. Oh, he's in custody, and then more about Donald Trump and the big lie. Whoa, what happened?
Yeah. The debt ceiling, because people want to hear about that.
That's the issue, is they want to memory hold this, and so we have to try and gather as much information as we can that, of course, mainstream outlets don't even want us to have. So if anyone out there actually has some more information as to whether that fight did happen that day, New York Times is saying that it did.
New York Post.
New York Post is saying that it did.
I had to go to the second page of Google Research. You know what the last time I clicked to go to the second page of a Google search?
Well, you're looking for Hunter Biden's laptop.
Well, that's true.
Here's something else to keep in mind. Does anyone else disagree with this? Guy shot up the school, shot 4 people at school, regardless of why, $75,000 bail, Kyle Rittenhouse, $2 million. Not to mention, you had some people, I don't even know if there was any bail set for some people at January 6th.
Some people there was not.
Some people there was not, and it's trespassing.
It was such a giant public thing, and I think they were like, hey, let's stop the burning.
Yeah, Kyle
I'm not calling it right or
no, but Kyle Rittenhouse shot a serial pedophile who repeatedly yelled the N-word and was actively trying to shoot him.
Yeah.
And then defended himself against somebody wielding a skateboard.
So let's not even
use
that. Let's just use January 6th people. Some of them set without bail. And you can see, I think Brandon Straka just got disorderly conduct. I think that's what he just got. He's the guy who created the walk-away movement, right, the gay movement. It wasn't even proven that, first off, it was proven that he didn't even go in.
Yeah.
And then they said, but it was him on camera. You could hear him off camera saying, hey, go in, boys. That wasn't even proven. There were some people who claimed that it wasn't even Brandon Straka, and he just said, all right, you know what, I'll take the plea. It's a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
I mean, how long were these people? So you have a kid now with 70,000, probably will get out, might be out this afternoon, and then you have people, the charges aren't even felonies, and they don't know when they're getting out, and there's no due process. Why doesn't the left care about a mass shooter at a school?
Well, because it doesn't fit that agenda.
I would argue that
would come to, and I think that it's also. I also do think, on top of that, though, that there is a difference between the gun violence that's occurred in low-income, extremely poor neighborhoods and the ones that are now middle class and above.
Yeah,
it's stranger.
It's atypical.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. It's atypical because most mass shooters are not white, statistically. To be clear, you're right. It's atypical. But the media cannot have it both ways and say, anytime it's a mass shooter, it's a white terrorist, and then say, well, the only reason it's being covered is because it's a nice white boy. You're right. That's abnormal. That's not common. It's not usual for a primarily, like you said, maybe middle class, upper middle class, white suburban neighborhood to have a mass shooting. They happen almost daily, weekly in other areas of the country. It just isn't covered.
Well, not anywhere for the same reason.
Right.
And that's what I mean, too, is like drugs, money, whatever it is.
Not for the same reason. Sometimes people,
it's a different, but yeah, it is a different thing. And I guess that's even what I was getting at the beginning is what is the difference between those two? The Kyle Rittenhouse thing, I think we all know. It's just because it was public, it was it was such a public thing that they had to put a huge bail on it because they were trying to keep cities from burning. I get that.
Well, because they want to crucify that kid. I mean, he was the one trying to keep cities from burning. It was on fire at that time.
Absolutely. But I'm saying but it was from
Yes. But I think it's an important point because here's something that nobody else is talking about right now.
Louder with Crowder is brought to you in part by CrowderShop.com. You don't have to be a freeloader your whole life. The good news is that you can support this show and the fight by buying some really cool clothes. CrowderShop.com.